Griffin and Ty Engelbright in studio this morning to talk about everything sports. It's the Sideline Report on your hometown radio station, WPKY, The Tiger. All right, good Thanksgiving morning to you. It is Thanksgiving. It is the Thanksgiving edition of the Sideline Report. Ty Engelbright, along with Times leader, sports editor Todd Griffin. Good morning and happy Thanksgiving, Todd.
Good morning. Happy Thanksgiving. The big question today is, which best of the Sideline Report show are we replaying for the holidays today?
I'm telling you, it would be a tough choice.
Wait, we're live. We're actually here.
We are, and we're glad everybody. I hope you're whatever you're doing, you're skipping around your kitchen, you're using nutmeg and and baking pumpkin pies and basting turkeys. That you got us on.
Yeah, we have too much sports to talk about to take a holiday.
We really do, and that's one reason why, dedicated souls like ourselves in the media, we are here on Thanksgiving morning to talk. But it's fun. It's too much fun not to, right?
Well, we have a lot of football to talk about. The high school football season did not end the way we all hoped it would, but still an incredible season for Caldwell County, going 10-3. And I know it's always disappointing. The one thing that I've been in sports for my entire life, pretty much. The one thing I've never quite got accustomed to or quite grasped is the finality of that last loss of the season, no matter what sport it is.
Right.
Because, you go into the season, you do all that preseason work, you work so hard during the week, during the season to play games, whatever sport it is. You get to the postseason, your hopes are as high as they can be, and that one loss, and it's all done. Yeah. And that's the end of it.
It's kind of like Christmas morning when you just rip open all those presents and you just sit around and what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
It's over. You hype it all up. I mean, you build it all up, and it's a long season, and and then boom.
And then you walk off the field, and it's over.
Yeah.
So it's always tough to grasp that. But, the thing we keep coming back to is when the season started, who would have predicted Caldwell County to be 10-3?
Right.
Maybe some of the players, maybe the coaches. I don't think anybody taking an objective look.
I don't know if anybody was voicing it.
Yeah, nobody taking an objective look at the schedule would have said, hey, this team with a new offensive line, a new kid at quarterback, is going to go 10-3 with their only losses to Christian County, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in 5A, to Mayfield, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in 2A, and to Elizabethtown, one of the top 3 or 4 teams in 3A.
Yeah.
It's hard to complain about that. I mean, we would all like to win the state championship every year, and I wish I could give everybody a state championship, but it doesn't work that way. When the playoffs start, there were 32 teams in Class 3A that started the playoffs. 31 of those are going to lose their last game. So it's kind of tough, but I mean, it's hard to look at that 10-3 season and be too down about that.
And when we lost, there was only 8 left.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean that says a lot.
We've been to the regional championship game 6 straight years. I mean, yes, we would all like to win those and go on and keep playing and play in the state semifinals and play for a state championship, but that's a lot to ask. If that's the bar, I mean, that's pretty excessive.
It is. And it was interesting to listen to Gator and DT show last week and Coach Barnes here, because something that struck me as very important about Caldwell County Tiger football: 6 years to the regional championship. That's all those extra practices these younger kids get. And it just builds and builds and helps, because a lot of teams that don't make there, they don't get that extra season. They don't get those extra practices. So it just helps prep us for the following year, mentally and physically.
It's kind of like a bowl game for a college team. You get all that extra 15 practices or whatever it is. Well, if you're consistently going to a bowl game, your juniors and seniors have, do the math, 30, 45 more practices than the team that doesn't get to go to a bowl game.
Never
it's
dawned
huge.
on me until I heard that.
Yeah.
I mean, it did never click until they were sitting there talking about it. I go, well, you know what? That's right.
So, sometimes Kentucky football fans can be a little spoiled because they're like, oh, no, we're going to the Liberty Bowl again, or not the Music City Bowl.
We always go down there. Yeah. Nashville loves us, though.
But they, you forget sometimes that all those extra practices come in. Sure, maybe it's not, the biggest bowl. It's not the Sugar Bowl or whatever, but it really helps you build your program for the future by getting those practices that, again, if you don't make the bowl, you don't get those practices. It's the same thing in high school. If you don't keep advancing, you don't get to keep practicing.
No, but you're exactly right. I mean, they had a core of seniors, a lot of them on defense, and that defense we know was going to be solid all year long. And then even the underclass players sort of elevated themselves somewhat. We had some key key position, skill players, and then of course Joby, played quarterback since he was tiny, and you figured he would respond, and respond he did. When he came in to pick up the role after Shane didn't play this year, so. Fantastic year.
Well, again, a tough way to end it, but there's never any shame to losing to a superior opponent. Mm-hmm. And I think by all metrics out there, Elizabethtown was a better team. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean Caldwell County couldn't have beat them on the right night, right. But the Tigers needed a lot to go right, and some things went wrong early. It's 14-0 Elizabethtown, and the Panthers didn't even have a first down yet. Right. As a matter of fact, the first time the Tiger defense actually got on the field, they forced a 3-and-out. So you just wish that, things had played a little different and the Tigers would have had a chance to play that game out. Elizabethtown maybe still would have won. Maybe they wouldn't have. But when Caldwell County got down early and then the pressure really starts to build and then you fall down 21-0 and Caldwell County still doesn't have a first down. That's a pretty big hole to try to dig out of against a really, really good Elizabethtown team. I think this was the best team we've seen the last 3 years from them.
No doubt about it. And I didn't quite expect to see, we kept hearing about the Becker kid all week long, and his skills. Of course, he burned us on a play.
One play into the game, and he's in the end zone.
Yeah, and he burned us on a play the year before.
Right.
Up there, I think he returned an interception.
And
maybe a punt, a punt or something. But you just that deflated ourselves quickly, and then you're playing from behind. But I was going to ask you because you probably I don't know if you know this, not to put you on the spot, but when was the last time Caldwell had a running clock on them, especially at home?
Ooh, that's been a while. Just off the top of my head, I would say maybe Mayfield. Have to think about that for a little bit.
Think about that one.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
No, that's a rare thing. And when you see that, I think I think not only the team and the coaches, but the whole state. It was stunning. Really, it stung a little bit.
Well, and not having as big a crowd as we would have liked. I think that momentum is a lot of things, and I was a little disappointed with the turnout. Yeah. Of course, there was a UK basketball game that night, and anytime Kentucky basketball plays, it's going to hurt your crowd. Go to basketball games. If it's a Tuesday night high school doubleheader and UK is playing that night, you can have a conversation with somebody sitting across the gym from you. That's how quiet it is. And I'm not really sure why people can't just record the UK game and go out to the high school game. But all those things, a crowd has such an impact on the game because sports momentum is such a big thing. It is. Again, go back to last Friday's game. Caldwell County is wanting to get the momentum, wanting to get the lead, force Elizabethtown to play from behind, do something they don't want to do, and then the opening kickoff goes the other way, and it's, like you said, the momentum the Caldwell County sideline drops. It was probably the quietest Tiger sideline I've heard all year, and it's, when you're playing an opponent, again, no shame in saying that E-Town's a better team.
No, not at all.
I always like to say that games aren't won by the better team; they're won by the team that scores the most points. So, the whole better thing is sometimes subjective.
And we've seen it before. We've seen that,
you can certainly take down a team that's better.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But you need all those things to go in your favor, all those little breaks, and it seemed like they kind of went the other way. And again, some of that's because Elizabethtown is really good. I think they'll have their hands full this week with Boyle County. I think at this point everybody's expecting Boyle to win the whole thing. But that'll be an interesting matchup between those two, and maybe we'll see just how good Elizabethtown is by how they play against Boyle County.
And Boyle they have to go to E-Town, don't they?
Yes.
Okay, so that's just up the road. That's another great game if you're looking for high school football. There's another really good high school football game Friday night just down the road here in Mayfield,
right?
As they host defending state champion
Christian Academy.
Yeah.
That'll be a good one. I've actually picked Christian Academy to win that game, and few teams go into Mayfield and win. For the longest time, Caldwell County was the last team to have won down there when they won in the regular season 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
So that's how rare Mayfield loses on its home turf.
Yeah, and it's funny that we get to dot that I every now and then
oh, yeah.
down there, and it's a good feeling because a lot of people try it and they're not successful, but that says a lot about our program as well. I think when Mayfield sees Caldwell County on the schedule, it sort of puts – they sort of think, okay, we're going to have our hands full, because I know 2 years ago we went down there and man, played a tough first half.
Yeah, and just couldn't get it done in the second half.
Exactly. But, I mean, when you're on their home turf and you've got them pinned up back to a corner, one or two things are going to happen. They're going to lay down, and you're going to continue to do what you've been doing, or you're going to do what happened to us, and they're going to go into halftime, they're going to regroup, and they're going to come out, and they're going to punch you right back really hard, and that's what they did.
Well, and we talked a couple of weeks ago about the Mayfield game, and some people don't like it being at the end of the regular season, and some don't like playing Mayfield at all, but I'm fine with that game. Like I said, I thought it's kind of a bowl game. It's not a district game anymore, so you don't have to worry about, playing for the playoffs. It's kind of a bowl game, a reward for the rest of the season. It's a fun matchup between two schools that are usually pretty good in football. There's no touching Mayfield's tradition when you get into that aspect, but Caldwell County, as I've mentioned before, tries to emulate Mayfield's program a little bit. So if you're not going to play them, it's kind of tough to do that. So you need to go look at that and look at the way they handle themselves, the things they do, and that's what Caldwell County is trying to build here. And again, 6 straight trips to the regional finals is a pretty big deal. It's something we've never done before.
Right.
So, you don't want to dismiss that. And, again, everybody wants to win every game, and everybody would like to have a state championship ring, but it's just not realistic to expect that every year.
No, but I think it'd be unrealistic to expect 6 regional championships each and every year. But, congratulations. Just job well done to those young men, everybody involved in our program, the coaching staff, from the administrators, because it takes a lot, and it takes the community to get behind this team. And again, sometimes I think this community wills this team, because there's no doubt that football is king in Caldwell County.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, this was as fun a football season as I can remember.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back, and we've had a Kentucky Mr. Football, and he was slinging the ball all over the place, and, that was great. But we went into at least half of those games figuring out, okay, how long until we get the running clock?
Right, exactly.
I mean, it was fun to win those games, but at the same time, when you look back at this season, there were so many games where the Tigers were behind and came back and pulled them out. There were close games. There were exciting games. To me, those competitive games are more fun than the blowouts are sometimes. I mean, everybody wants a blowout, wants to pad their stats, but those close games this season, you go back and just start counting them off. Even the Christian County game at the first of the year, I mean, those were some fun games.
Yeah, and that was one game that, we honestly, a couple bounces one way or the other.
Oh, yeah.
We had that game in many ways, and I think we matched up well with them. I'm glad we kind of caught them at the early part of the season instead of later, because as we all know, we all improve and get different.
Yeah.
But the outcome may have been different. It might not have been, because we both improved. But, just to be quite frank with you about this season, you always, I always showed up at the football field wondering, what's going to happen. I know we had a pretty decent team. But we had to, just like every time, you have to go out there and execute and play a really good game and take care of business. For the most part, obviously, we did that. But when we played from behind, what a learning experience for this team, and what great value it will be for these underclassmen that will take this experience of this season into next year. Because really, we lost some core seniors. We lost some defensive players that were really going to be key, but a lot of our skill players and our quarterback, and they're coming back.
Oh, yeah. Going back to the first of the year, when people would ask me what kind of season I was expecting, I said, well, it could be a whole lot like last year, where the team played pretty well, had a really tough schedule, lost some games early. I was really anticipating about an 8-5 season again. And you go back and look, I think the last 3 years are 10-3, 8-5, and 10-3. Again, it's really difficult to complain about that.
No doubt.
And the team went 10-3, pulled out some big games, winning on the road at Henderson County against a bigger school. Just all those games were, beating Graves County. That was a really good Graves County team.
We kind of did to them what Elizabethtown did to us.
Right,
We
jumped on them early.
And defensive touchdowns, and bam, they were done.
The Crittenden County game, that ended up being sort of a lopsided game for Caldwell County, but if you look at where Crittenden County ended the season in the 1A regional championship, that game looked better and better all season. Paducah Tillman, I never could quite figure them out because
I think they're better than their record indicates.
Yeah, and they played us a great game out here, the most physical team we've seen all year, and Caldwell County was able to pull that game out.
But that
all those
buzzsaw
games
got them too, though.
right. Yeah, the Elizabethtown. Again, you just have to have something good happen early. I don't think Caldwell County got to show what they could do in that game because of the things that happened early. It snowballed so quickly. And, going into that game, I legitimately thought Caldwell County had a chance to win it.
I did too.
I think the coaches thought they had a chance to win it. Nobody was sitting there thinking that was a given or that Caldwell County should show up and win. But nobody expected to be on the wrong end of a 52-6 score. But sometimes that just happens. You get down and you can't get out of the hole, and the next thing you know, the score is what it was.
Yeah, that's right. But, man, what a season. A lot to be proud of, a lot to build on, and a lot to look forward to.
Oh, yeah. Looking ahead to next year, going into this season, we knew the defense would have to pick up the load and kind of carry the load because the offense was working in some new people. I think if you look ahead to next year, I'm expecting the offense to be really good going into the season because all those people do come back. And, hey, maybe there's a kid or two out there that might decide to play football or to rejoin the football team who hasn't played the last couple of years that could really help in that regard too. I think the defense has to replace quite a bit with those linebackers and, Cole Baker on the end of that defensive line. Those guys are going to be really, really tough to replace. But there are some other guys back, the Rileys are back. You're going to have some guys in the secondary come back. If you can find a defensive lineman to step in, some linebackers to fill some holes, I think the Tigers could be really good again next season. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Caldwell County be back in the regional championship game for a 7th straight season, and we'll just see how it goes from there. But offensively, Caldwell County could be really, really good next season.
I agree with you 100%, and I just think I think with our programs, our junior pro programs, our middle school program, it just continues to help send those players in those skill positions as well as the line up the way, so that each and every year, we have the guys that come out for football. We have an opportunity to build a pretty good team,
yeah.
And it speaks volumes to our entire football program here in the county. And I know we had several guys. I don't know if you had the list there. I was looking for it. The WKC.
Yeah, I think there were 11 that made the all WKC mention, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, 11.
When you go 10-3, you get some guys on the team.
Yeah. Back when we were in high school, the 3 or 4 maybe made it.
Yeah.
If you remember, just how it was. But 11, and then if Coach Cole Baker is going to play on the All-State team up there at Elizabethtown.
Yeah, at the Best of the Bluegrass game. Coach Barnes is going to coach that team. Right. Will Barnes and Wayne McGowan are going to help on the coaching staff. So Caldwell County will be well represented. I think that game is December 10th.
I think that's right.
At 2 p.m. Eastern time. At Elizabethtown. So
yeah. And I think Coach Barnes, the Russell Athletic, names a Coach of the Year. He was the 3A coach of the
First
year.
District.
First District Coach of the Year, as named by Russell Athletics, and Coach Al Starnes, same way.
Yes.
For 1A. And so congratulations. Those are good honors for all those young men and those coaches.
Yeah, this is just a big season, and then you get those accolades at the end when you win all those games. So, again, just a fun season on a day of giving thanks. I'm just thankful to be on that sideline every night, and such a special season.
It is.
I go back to that Christian County game, and you're waiting for the team to run through the cheerleader sign, and the cheerleaders are out there, and all the fans are out there, and the band's out there, and you're waiting for them just to explode through that line. And this year the guys just kind of stepped through, and I was like, well, what's going on? And as they stepped through, they held up jerseys, number 42 and a number 58 for De'Aaron Hamilton and Avery Warfield, and they brought those jerseys out every game and put them on the bench. And to me, that just says a lot about the character of the guys on the team, more than going 10-3 ever would.
No doubt about it. That's a special group, and they went through a lot the previous seasons. They had been through some, losing those young men, in different ways, but unexpected, and a core part of the teams. And when you lose teammates like that, it's tragic, but it's a rallying point, and it's a way to bring those young men together. And I think we saw that.
It was impressive to see it the first time, and you thought, well, they're remembering them for the first game, so that's great. But every week they carried those out there. Every week they took them over to the bench and, carefully put those jerseys on the bench so they would be there. I mean,
way to honor those young men.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's even as a parent, my son was a senior. it's special to be whether it's part of the media as you are, as I am. It's special to be part of, and just a small part that we do to be a part of that. But there's a connection there, and I think this whole community feels it to Caldwell County sports. Because it's like a big family, and it's just a special place to live, grow, watch, and be a part of sports. It just is. It's very. I don't know. It's just a good hometown feeling, and that's one way I can say about it. You can't put it into words. It's all from the heart, and it's all emotion, but it's a feeling that you get. You get it.
Like I said, it was just amazing to see that week in and week out, whether it was a home game or a road game or anything. Those guys did that, and just a lot of respect for those kids for something like that, and sometimes those kind of things go unnoticed, and I just want those guys to know that it did not go unnoticed. A lot of people saw those things, and it means a lot.
No doubt. Glad you mentioned it.
And again, another thing I'd like to bring up, being thankful for. I'm not sure I ever really thanked everyone properly for the Hall of Fame induction back during the season, during the Fort Campbell. Thank you, during the Fort Campbell game, and the one thing I didn't realize, because when that ceremony is usually going on, I have my back to the crowd. I'm taking pictures, so I don't really realize what all's happening. I'm just watching the ceremony. But as seeing it from the other side, as being out there on the field, just how many people stayed in their seats at halftime and, were so warm to everyone that was receiving an honor on the football field. You could really hear the cheers, and it seemed like everybody was attentive and really paying attention. And so to see that from the other side, it just, again, makes you thankful that even the Fort Campbell people on the other side were really respectful. And it was just an interesting experience all the way around. And, again, I'm so thankful that I was even considered for something like that, much less to be out on the field and to get an award like that. That was such a big deal.
Well-deserved, Todd, back to your days at WPKY, those 9 years, and then now how many years you've been at the
22
years of the Times here. I mean, yeah, boy, we're dating ourselves quite a little bit, but just what a fantastic job you do with our sports. I mean, everywhere that I go, everywhere you turn, just the pictures, the coverage, the writing, it's just a full package, and well-deserved, my man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
congratulations. That. Congratulations. And you do a fantastic job. And that's one reason why, I wanted you part of our radio station, because you do have a radio background, you have an extensive knowledge of Caldwell County sports, and you're passionate about it. And that we can team up together and do a little something extra on the radio is important, but well-deserved, and congratulations. I know it's very prideful. I mean, it's a lot of pride that you take in your work, and you do a good job.
Well, it was fun being out there with those guys, because I watched a lot of those guys play football, and just such a great group. And, again, just to be considered for something like that was an honor, but to be out there with those guys, and, again, everybody was so warm, and still to this day people come up and say, hey, congratulations, and that just means a big deal.
Sure, and congratulations to all those inductees this year and the previous ones. And the good thing is, it looks like that the Hall of Fame is coming back.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of players that have put on cleats and eaten some of that dirt out there on that field, as well as Butler and amongst other realms of Caldwell County football. And just stay tuned to who the next inductee might be.
Oh, yeah, I had a long list when we started trying to think about people for the Hall of Fame, and there's still a lot of guys out there who need to be on that list, and I'm sure we'll start recognizing those next year and the next year after that. And, again, the Hall of Fame is such a big honor, especially, for those guys who got there and played and, took all the hits and went through every practice and showed up for weightlifting all winter.
Right.
I mean,
work through injury and adversity. Yeah, it's special. Another thing, I wanted to bring up too is to mention just what a wonderful facility and field that we had. Will Brown, I think Bruce Farmer, and all the folks that maintain our grounds, and Skipper and just everybody. That, man, what a great playing surface that is out there.
Well, and I think a lot of visitors to Tiger Stadium always compliment us on the facility.
Oh, I heard it when they came in. They go, God, this is something.
Oh, yeah, so that's
even Elizabethtown, they got primo.
Oh, yeah, they have the best of everything. But there's something special about walking into the stadium on Friday night and looking up on the wall and seeing the Tiger all lit up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I didn't really realize what the Tiger meant to the football teams until I was at a middle school game one night, and you know, they had the toss before the game, and the other team won the toss and took the football. And of course, Caldwell County's players we want to defend the Tiger.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, defend the Tiger. I never realized that before, that anybody even realized that. Hey, I'm sure everybody realized it was up there, but not that.
It's down that end zone.
It's part of the field, part of the game. You know, almost it's the Tigers forever watching.
It is, and man, and Richie McKinney just gave that a facelift.
Oh, it
this
looks
year,
great.
and it looks great. And I'm telling you what, I don't know if there's a prettier field when the sun's setting back there over those fields back there behind the Brown farm back over there, and what used to be wood farm back over there. You know, on a fall night, on a clear fall night, and that orange sky, and man, I'm telling you what.
I actually tweeted out a picture earlier this year. It was Joby Jaggers and Jameer Riley. I can't remember which game, maybe the Graves County game.
Yep.
And the sky is all lit up orange and purple, and with them wearing the blue jerseys and the white pants, it really popped and really made a nice picture.
No doubt about it. And you know, the smells that are in the air, the popcorn, man, it's just good stuff, man. I just love it.
Speaking of Twitter, that's my segue.
Yeah, segue.
Tweeted out a few, well, I'm trying to remember exactly now when it was, several days ago, that, you know, the football bowl projections are starting to come out. And I saw one bowl projection that had Purdue, you know, with our boy Elijah Sindelar going to the Music City Bowl. Then I saw another projection that had Kentucky going to the Music City Bowl. So I just tweeted out,
I saw that.
Would Caldwell Countyans have any interest in that matchup? And according to the responses on Twitter and Facebook, yes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people.
You had a few responses to that.
Now, granted, a lot can happen in the bowl situation between now and the time those are finalized, but Kentucky has a big game this weekend with Louisville. But the more I look at that, I'm not sure the Louisville game does much for Kentucky, win or lose, in the bowl situation.
They've already locked a bowl up with a record.
Yeah,
right?
they've locked a bowl up.
Yeah.
It looks to me a lot like Kentucky's going to end up in the Music City Bowl or the Liberty Bowl.
They still play that in Memphis? I've been to that one,
yeah.
I've been to that one.
The Liberty Bowl would probably be an interesting matchup because you might be looking at Texas in that game. So a Kentucky-Texas game would be pretty interesting.
It's a neat matchup. Memphis is fun to go to a bowl game anyway.
And, of course, the Music City Bowl is the easy bowl for Kentucky fans.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of Kentucky fans are, you know, kind of weary of the Music City Bowl because
we're always there.
Yeah, we've been there so many times. But that could actually be a good matchup, looking at a Purdue or somebody like that, or it's a Big Ten or ACC opponent for the SEC. So you could also get a Wake Forest or maybe a North Carolina State.
What would determine which conference? Which.
I think the Music City Bowl just gets whichever best team remaining from either one of those conferences.
Okay.
I think it can go either way. Now, at one time, there was some rule that it couldn't take one conference 3 straight years, and if it had taken a conference 2 years in a row, it had to take the other one. But I'm not sure if that's still, you know, the bowl rules seem to change.
We know it's all about the money.
Oh, absolutely. the bowl rules seem to change year in and year out. The only negative, if there is one to the Music City Bowl, is that's the same day as the UK U of L basketball game. But the basketball game is a noon Central Time start. I think that's right, noon Central. The bowl game's at 3:30, so you could still go to Nashville, find a place to watch the basketball game.
Say everybody's going to hang out on Broadway,
right? And then
watch the game, and then they'll just
and then
walk
get to the
across
football.
bridge.
Yeah. So that could be done, but Purdue still has to beat Indiana this week. Purdue's at 5-6, and I don't see any way they can get to a bowl without a win this week.
What do you think? Is that evenly matched?
If they play like they played last week, I think Purdue wins that game.
Okay.
You know, they've got some momentum going in after the win over Iowa.
Yeah, Elijah had a great game.
3 touchdowns, 228
like
passing,
that.
really played well. I think I saw somewhere where Purdue was up 21-9 in the second half, and they said it was the first time the Boilermakers had a double-digit lead on the road in the Big Ten since like 2010.
That's a
long time.
That's an amazing stat if you think about that. 7
so,
years.
to me, the big thing about Purdue is their defense has been so good for most of the season. That gives them a chance to compete. Now that the offense is at least showing signs of coming around.
I loved your tweet about the, they caught 3 touchdown passes, and your tweet was, I guess he's not throwing very hard.
Oh, yeah. Well, thankfully, Elijah must be taking something off the ball now.
Just kind of floating it in there, right?
I never did understand the whole he's throwing the ball too hard.
I'm not so sure. Gator and DT didn't. They were like, DT went, yeah, right.
Again, the kid started every game for 4 years at Caldwell County. I only remember a handful of passes that were dropped. Now, there maybe were some instances where he was trying to get the ball to the running back out of the backfield and maybe put a little too much on it. But when you're talking about throwing the ball 30 yards down the field to a receiver, you've got to put something on those passes. You can't float the ball. No, so to say that, well, he threw it too hard for the guy to catch it in the end zone, that's baloney. I mean, I'm not going to buy into that no matter who's.
Thing up there, you're looking at a pick six.
Oh, yeah, or getting your receiver's head knocked off.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, get the ball to him and let him catch it and protect himself. But, I never buy into that, throws the ball too hard. I mean, go back. John Elway threw the ball really hard. Brett Favre threw the ball really hard.
Jeff George.
Yeah.
I love mentioning him. He did, though.
Yeah, and those guys, 2 Hall of Famers and Jeff George, who had the arm to be a Hall of Famer, but never quite got there.
Never made it. Didn't.
But, I mean, that would be a huge bowl game. I mean, can you imagine the divided loyalties of a lot of people if it's Purdue, because we all want to see Elijah do well.
I saw some of your Twitter comments.
Oh, yeah. But, we all want Kentucky to do well. I mean, that'd be tough. I think I would be pulling for Elijah to throw about 7 touchdowns, but Kentucky to win 50-49 or something.
There you go. Yeah. You can split your loyalty to that one.
It'd be tough not to.
Yeah. It would be. But how cool would that be, though?
Oh, that'd be awesome. And I'm not sure it applies, anywhere outside of Caldwell County, maybe just a few places. But, I mean, that would be like the biggest football game ever, college football game ever for Caldwell County to see former Mr. Football from the state of Kentucky, from Caldwell County, Elijah Sindelar, playing against the Kentucky Wildcats, the other team that recruited him heavily in the Music City Bowl. Again, a lot can happen between now and then, but, again, it's kind of weird because usually that Louisville game has a big impact, and I think it has a big impact on Kentucky's season, as Kentucky fans see the season, getting that win over Louisville and getting that extra victory, going into a bowl game with 8 wins instead of 7 is big. But it's kind of tough when you start looking at the bowls and the bowl picture. I'm not sure Kentucky can do much better than the Music City Bowl. Maybe, but I think at this point the impact for Kentucky is going to be either in the Music City Bowl or the Liberty Bowl, and I think that's where the SEC is going to end up sending them.
Well, they'll be in Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to match up the bowls, again, where you have the largest economic impact.
Right.
I think Missouri probably would be better for the Liberty Bowl at this point than the Music City Bowl would be. So if you put
Missouri over there,
then it almost becomes obvious that, hey, if we want to fill up the Music City Bowl, we need to put Kentucky there because the fans will be there. Give them an attractive matchup, whether it's Big Ten or ACC. And, Nashville and the SEC, more than willing to take Kentucky fans' money.
Yeah. Oh, they are. And it's always festive. Like I said, it's always a sea of blue down there, whether it's the basketball team or the football team. And Nashville loves Kentucky fans. I mean, they just it's good for their bottom line.
The only thing that ever bothers me about that is every time Kentucky plays in Nashville, whoever the TV announcers are, they say, look at all the Kentucky fans that made the trip from Lexington. And that drives me bonkers. I'm like,
that's the only place in the state.
Yeah, like that's the only place a UK fan would come from. Hey, everybody's from Lexington. No, they're from all over the Commonwealth. As a matter of fact, I would say there's probably as many people or more from Hopkinsville at that game than from Lexington. I think that's just kind of somebody didn't do their homework when they think all UK fans come from Lexington. I mean, it's the entire state.
No doubt about it. But that ought to be interesting to see how that plays out and pans out. And I guarantee, if that happens, better watch out. There'll be probably a tremendous Caldwell County contingent of fans heading to Nashville.
Oh, yeah. There'll be a continuous line trying to get to that, especially, if it's Kentucky and Purdue. I mean,
that's what I'm saying, yeah. I mean, that's going to be huge. and it'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I might figure out a way to try to get down there and see that.
And speaking of Kentucky, the basketball team, I believe now is 5-1 after a win last night. The only loss to Kansas, 65-61.
Fort Wayne.
I haven't made a determination on this year's UK basketball team yet. Again, we talked a couple of weeks ago about it, and I think this is probably the most Calipari basketball team he's had at UK because all those guys are long.
They're big. They're big.
They have those long arms, wingspans. I mean, just they're all quick.
If he can pull them together, it's going to be scary come March for most people, I think.
But there's no Fox on this team. There's no Monk on this team, at least not yet. It's going to be a progress to get those teams.
Yep.
I think a lot of fans are jumping ship because they don't see that star player yet. And I'm like, well, they are 5-1. It hasn't been pretty.
Can I ask a question? If
yes.
you're a fan, why would you jump ship?
I'm not sure why this early in the season, but
I mean, if you're a true fan, why would you jump ship?
We get a little spoiled,
okay.
At Kentucky, the goal every year is to win the national championship.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
maybe that's not realistic, but even
at Kentucky, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Even for me, I think Kentucky should be in the Final Four every year, if not winning the national championship, competing for the national championship. Yeah. And hey, that's why Calipari makes the big bucks. He doesn't get $5, $6, $7, $8 million a year to make the second round of the NCAA tournament and get beat. That's just
you're right.
I could do that at Kentucky. I mean, with the resources of the University of Kentucky, you could pull somebody off the street and win 20 games.
Yeah, just play
it takes
street ball.
Right. It takes the elite coach to make sure you're in the Final Four, or trying to win the national championship every year. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the jury is still out on this team.
Right.
I mean,
it's a long way to go, though.
And the Vanderbilt kid hasn't even played yet.
Right.
Can't remember what his prognosis is, but I think he'll be back this season.
Okay.
So the one thing that and they've talked about a lot of empty seats at Rupp Arena this season, which you don't see a whole lot of. A lot of times Kentucky could be playing anybody and draw 23,000 people.
Right.
Some of the early season games haven't quite drawn that well. I think it's a combination of things. I think sometimes it's the opponent. If there's not a name opponent out there, sometimes it may turn a few people off. But I think the reverse is true of what we've been arguing about in all these Friday games for Kentucky. I think, yes, high school football loses some people to TV and to watch Kentucky. I think Rupp Arena is losing some people because they've been going to the high school football games those nights.
They might.
So I think
the impact's different, but yeah, I think you're probably right.
And I'm not really sure why Kentucky has decided to play all these Friday games early in the season. I know television dictates some of that, but I think Kentucky probably has enough power, at least over some of these early season games where they're playing a smaller school, to kind of say, hey, we'd rather play this on Thursday or Sunday or just any time other than direct conflict with high school football. I mean, here we are trying to promote high school football, and Kentucky, as a state, is trying to promote football in general, and then you've got UK playing all these basketball games on a Friday night. To me, that's really just short-sighted or not sighted at all. I mean,
I know it's happened previous seasons, but it just seems like it's just more and more. They just keep grabbing more and more Friday nights.
Well, I don't remember in the past there being many Friday games, maybe one every now and then.
Yeah.
When Calipari first came in, there were a couple.
Yeah.
But this year it seems like it's been
routine.
4, 5, 6 weeks where every week, whether it's, can't do much about Big Blue Madness being on Friday night if that's going to be the first day to practice. But you don't have to have the blue-white game on Friday. You don't have to have all the exhibition games on Friday. You don't have to have all these other games on Friday. I know television pulls a lot of strings, but I've got to think Kentucky can do something about cleaning up at least some of those Friday games.
Right. Well, I'm like you. I mean, I have not been able to watch a complete game. I've seen bits and pieces, and I always kind of tune into Coach Cal's post games, and of course it's gloom and doom with him.
Oh yeah.
It's a long way to go. You guys are going to have to be patient, blah, 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 blah. And, I mean, you hear that every year. And I think for the most part he's probably right about this team. There's no identity. There's nobody really coming to the forefront. I mean, there's signs, but they, as he said the other day in his, the last game before this Fort Wayne game, they got to play 40 minutes of basketball. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
not been near doing that.
And we've seen a lot of stories out there the last week or so, are fans suffering one-and-done fatigue. I
Right.
think there's something to that. I think it's just a reality of the situation right now until the rules change. This is the way it's going to be, and Calipari's going to go get those guys who are largely one-and-done players. And, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do think as a fan, it makes it difficult to buy into those teams sometime, or to kind of fall in love with those players, like as a UK fan you used
they're
to.
all 3 years, or they're 3 years, or all 4 years.
Because they kind of grew on you as,
You're
freshmen and sophomores, and by the time they were juniors and seniors, you'd become big fans of those kids.
Exactly.
And you really don't have the opportunity to do that now.
You have just a few months.
Even the teams that Calipari has had that have been successful have had those one or two guys that have stuck around, whether they may just be a sophomore or a junior, but at least those guys have been around enough to where you kind of like those guys and you start pulling for them, and you get accustomed to seeing them. They become familiar. Then the freshman guys are just kind of, they bring them along, and you just kind of fall in love with those teams. And it's tough to fall in love with a team where every year here's our 10 new guys.
No, you're exactly right. The dynamic has totally changed.
And I've heard a lot of people say that.
I've never thought of that.
And I'm right there myself. It's like people will say, well, I don't even know all the names of the guys on the team this year. And I'm like, well, I'm right there with you. I know some of them. Knox, has kind of stood out early, but some of those other guys, you're kind of going, wait a minute, which guy is that? So you almost had to pull out the roster and go, okay, who are the Kentucky Wildcats this season?
Right.
And I think it's a really talented group. It's probably the most athletic team overall he's had, but there's certainly not that one guy where last year you knew after watching a couple of games that Fox was really good. You knew after watching a couple of games that, hey, this Monk guy, he can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
We haven't really had that yet this year, and I'll be the first to admit I haven't watched as many of the early season UK games yet.
On Friday night.
Because we've been at the football stadium on Friday night.
And it's hard to go back, and even if you do record it, I'm sure you did, but to sit down and really concentrate on it.
Right.
It's not as fun.
It's not the same to go back and watch it after you know what the final score was.
Exactly.
Either they won by a lot, which you're like, well, if it was a blowout, I may watch the first half of that. Or if it was closer than it should have been, you're like, well, do I really want to watch them struggle after?
Right.
So
who is UIC? I mean, I'm not.
Illinois, Chicago.
Okay. I got you now.
That's Sunday, 5 o'clock on the SEC network. So.
And that tough Harvard team.
Yeah. Well, again, you can't go out and schedule just a killer lineup when you have a bunch of young guys. But again, I think that's part of it. I think Kentucky fans, you want to see a North Carolina come to Rupp Arena every other year.
That's where I was just going. What happened with that series?
I think they just decided to take a break. I think they'll be back on each other's schedule at some point. I'm not sure why they can't play every year.
I mean, everybody always looked forward to that one. It was early in the year, and either one or the other, usually one, and then you're like, okay, well, we'll see them again, potentially.
I'm still torn over the Indiana thing. After the way Kentucky was treated in Bloomington, I don't want to see them go back to Indiana and play, but there certainly has to be some kind of neutral sites. Play them at the Yum Center in Louisville, someplace in Indianapolis. There could still be a way to, I'd like to see the Indiana game sneak back on there someplace.
I would too.
I miss the Notre Dame game every year. For years, Kentucky played a game in Louisville, and a lot of times it was Notre Dame.
Right.
Well, they ended up getting rid of that game because they said the game wasn't as big a draw as it used to be. I'm like, well, that's because they quit playing Notre Dame, or I think they played North Carolina there a couple of times, and they started playing, don't want to offend anybody, but, a smaller team, a smaller school in Louisville, and there's just not as much interest to that. When you're used to seeing Notre Dame and North Carolina or a team like that, or even in Indiana, and you start playing, insert small school here,
right?
It's just not the same draw.
No. Well, it'll be exciting no matter what as we head on down through the season. But it's interesting. Like I said, it's fun to watch Coach Cal's post game.
And basketball's a different animal. Basketball is more of a marathon, where the football season seems to be a sprint.
Yeah.
We talked about the high school season. It seems like just the other day we were out there getting ready for the Christian County game, and then boom, we play 13 games and the season's over, and you're like, what happened? Where did the season go? I would have loved to have been writing a football preview this week and getting ready for a game Friday night, but man, it just flew by. The entire fall sports season, again, it seemed like I was really just working on those preview sections for football and volleyball and soccer, and then you look up the next day and they're gone and you're getting ready for basketball.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I want to give a shout-out to Lipscomb Bison, Eli Pepper.
Oh,
he had a little moment in the spotlight down in Texas earlier this week. the Mo Bamba blast dunk.
Oh, yeah.
And that was pretty cool to see.
Mo Bamba at one time was on Kentucky's radar.
Right.
They were going after him. So
he's top 5 NBA pick.
He's a legit. And Eli got him on one, and it was, I don't know if everyone's seen the highlight or not, but you can go on the internet and find it a lot of places. I tweeted it out, retweeted it, so it's out there. Just drove the lane and absolutely threw it down.
Demolished him. And I think he he looked back in surprise.
And then woofed a little bit and got teed up after it. But to me, one of the greatest comments, and I had it in the story in Wednesday's paper, was from Shaka Smart, who basically said, I told Eli after the game that if I'd have thrown that down, I would have talked trash too. I thought that was awesome.
I thought it was great. And you can see, I think you posted the picture of his face, Shaka Smart back there in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Was that you? And his
on
eyes
Twitter,
are big as saucers.
On Twitter, and again, everyone, Twitter's free, so follow me on Twitter. I try to tweet out updates and scores from games and everything. I actually had a picture from a few years ago where Eli had the big dunk against Madisonville out at the Cavs gym. So I was able to find his dunk against Texas and put them together. So that's got a lot of play on Twitter and Facebook, and just a big deal. And it's like Shaka Smart said, Lipscomb may be a smaller school, but they have kids who can play.
No doubt.
And he even said that he told his team after that dunk by Eli, I told you these guys are good. They can play.
And they hung with them there.
Yeah, it was close early, and Texas kind of pulled away. It's tough to compete with Texas money, but
right. But I mean, that was it's fun. It's good to see a hometown kid done good.
Well, there were a lot of those local highlights on ESPN and all the other sports outlets over the weekend because you had Sindelar throwing 3 touchdown passes and the one pass down the sideline where he just kind of 42-yard pass that just floats it right in the guy's hand. I mean, perfect. Yeah. So it's interesting when you turn on Sports Center and you see those guys like, hey, I know that guy, and I know that guy. That's
neat.
fun.
He's from our hometown. Same way with Emma when you see her up there, and it's really cool. And of course, this past Tuesday night we're racing to 10 o'clock. This past Tuesday night we had Tiger Madness.
Oh yeah. And our basketball preview for Caldwell County will be in the paper on Saturday.
Right.
We just ran the Lyon County preview in Wednesday's paper, so if you haven't picked that up, grab that. And if you're a Lyon County fan, you get a preview of your team. If you're a Caldwell County fan, you get a preview of the first team you're going to face because the regular season opens Tuesday at the Cab with a Caldwell-Lyon girls and boys varsity doubleheader.
That just seems natural, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the basketball season is right upon us. And one unique thing happening for our basketball preview this year is that I interviewed Melissa Thomas yesterday. That's how fresh our interviews are and our previews are.
Yes.
That she was in Haiti. So it's the first time I interviewed somebody
over the phone
from Haiti.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
For the basketball preview.
That's
so
neat.
I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And of course, I think they will be back tomorrow. And then the assistant coaches have all been running the practices and the scrimmages while they've been out of town. But they'll get to have a couple of more practices once Melissa gets back and can run those and get ready for Lyon County on Tuesday night. So,
what did the girls' team look like this year?
Girls team is small in numbers, just 11 players on the varsity roster on the varsity program.
Right.
I'm sure at some point they'll pull up some of the middle school kids to kind of fill that out a little bit. Yep. Not much height for the Lady Tigers this year, but for high school basketball, one thing they have going for them is they have some really good guards.
Right.
I always say basketball is a guards game.
Yes,
you can have all the big people you want, but if you can't get them the ball, it doesn't really help you a whole lot. So the Lady Tigers have a lot of guards. I think they'll be a scrappy team. I think they'll be able to shoot the ball a little bit. If you go back to last year, the girls were 17-11, and if you look at the stats, they really probably shouldn't have won that many games. So that shows you that they're getting coached up, and they'll go out and battle people. as a team last year, they shot 35% from the field, 21% from three-point range, and still won 17 games, and had 3 or 4 others they were right there at the end, could have pulled out. So, to me, that was a pretty strong season.
Yeah.
There were some players who decided not to come back this year for whatever reasons, but I think they'll be a fun team to watch. It's going to be tough to compete with the more athletic teams out there, but I think against a lot of teams on the schedule, the Lady Tigers will be right there competing this season.
Well, if I know the Lady Tiger teams, is Coach Thomas always has them ready to go. They'll get physical with you. They'll battle for the ball. They'll go up for boards, and they will run it down the court. And like I said, hopefully, we've got good guards. They'll be able to get some buckets to go in.
The boys basketball team at Caldwell was 16-14 last season. So for Caldwell County, pretty successful basketball campaign when both teams can have winning records.
Yeah.
I think they'll be kind of along that line again this year. I like the girls. I think they'll be fun to watch. A couple of kids to look out for is Darian Boyd and Jameer Riley. Darian had 13.5 points a game and 5.1 rebounds last year. Jameer, 13.2 points and 5.5 rebounds. And the thing to watch for the Tiger basketball team is, they've got a few kids with some experience, but it's really kind of a young team overall. I don't think any of the kids who start are going to be seniors. So this is a chance for this group to really build this season and to maybe next year with, 2 or 3 juniors and 2 or 3 sophomores this season that are going to play quite a bit to really build for the future to try to see, have as much success this year as you can.
Right.
But really things are lining up next year for things to look really good for the Tiger basketball team.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, we've got good coaching. We're blessed with good coaching, and we've got kids that are willing to go out there and work hard and put in the time and the effort to play, and then you just put it out there on the court and just do your best. And they're going to give 100% out there. And
the basketball preview section, again, will be in Saturday's Times leader. Again, I talked to Melissa last night and just wrote the preview last night, so that's fresh.
That's fresh.
I talked to Daniel Kukihiko, the boys coach, earlier this week and wrote that story, so all those things. And the Lyon County preview that actually came out Wednesday, we took their pictures the Wednesday the week before. And, I think I talked to Coach Jeff Doom, the girls coach, while we were taking pictures that Wednesday. Talked to Jeff Embry, the boys coach at Lyon County, on Monday. So, again, all that stuff is right there. Sometimes
hot
those
off the presses, literally.
Sometimes those special sections, they come in just under the wire. Yeah. It's a photo finish, I like to say sometimes, to make sure they get finished. I don't think the average person would realize sometimes that those things literally get put together and finished at the last minute. But one of the reasons we do that is because we do want everything to be as current and as up-to-date as possible, because the worst thing that happens for newspaper people is you write a story, have it ready to go a day or two later, and before the story can even run,
something changes.
Something has changed.
Yeah.
So you try to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, and that, sometimes that can be a challenge. I know. That's the advantage that sometimes we have, but it's still important that you're going to get thorough, real precise, longer, accurate coverage. We're going to give you little snapshots.
Well, that's the goal. The goal is to have all those little interesting things in the newspaper that, even back when I worked at the radio station,
you just don't have time to get it in there.
We couldn't sit here and go through past records for the last 70 years. I mean,
a box score even.
We'd put everybody to sleep by the time we got finished with that. But in the paper, you can list all those things and people can sit down and have a chance to go through it. And it's one of those things where you can get the preview section and read the preview and maybe not go through all the record stuff right away, but you can set that aside, and then when you have time later, go back and look through the records and look through the past history and all those things, and comb through the roster or this year's schedule. And so you can just kind of keep that as a handy guide, and it's still good, throughout the season.
All throughout the season, yeah. And definitely encourage you to, again, the Lyon County has already come out. They came out Wednesday, but this hello there.
Someone always honks.
I didn't see who it was. You see who it was?
I couldn't see who it was.
But hello there. We're so glad you honked and said Happy Thanksgiving to you, by the way. But pick up a copy this Saturday of the Times Leader, and then you'll see the Caldwell County basketball preview in there.
Yeah.
Hot off the presses, no doubt
Both
about it.
teams going into the season with a little momentum. The Tigers won both of their scrimmages. They beat McLean County last Saturday, 84-67, and then beat Ballard Memorial last week,
yep.
81-62 here. So that's
Good start.
Good signs there. Caldwell's girls played 2 scrimmages down at Crittenden County last Saturday, beat Hickman County 61-31, beat Ballard 34-31. So again, you can't always read a whole lot into those preseason scrimmages.
Yeah.
Coaches are trying to look at some things and just maybe work on some different things, but it's always better to get a win and just for your confidence, get a little boost, and like I said, carry that momentum into the season.
Yeah. And it's going to be a fun season. It's a long season, but it's a fun season. And, hey, I tell you what, it's nice and warm in the gym. It's a great atmosphere. So I want to encourage all of our sports fans here in Caldwell County to come on out and participate and enjoy a good solid basketball game, when they're home, especially, just come on out.
Again, it's going to be a really fun basketball season. You've got the Lyon County doubleheader to start things, and
exciting.
We talk about the crowds all the time and wish we could get back to the days where we just had those packed houses. I know Caldwell Lyon used to always draw a packed house, whether it was here or at Lyon County, and it didn't matter how good either team was or what the records were. You always drew a really good crowd.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can see that Tuesday, to open the season. And then the big West Kentucky Hoops Classic coming the 28th and 29th of December.
That'll be here before we know it.
I always say that there are no local stories anymore. Back when I first started at the newspaper, you'd write a story, it would be in the paper, that'd be it.
Now it's everywhere.
Then when websites came around, you would write a story, and typically you tend to write for what you think is your audience. Well, I found out pretty quick once we started putting stories up on the website that the audience is everybody.
Everywhere.
Anybody in the world can read your story now.
Exactly.
And that's only grown with Twitter and Facebook and those kind of things. As a matter of fact, the Bassey kid that's going to be here with Aspire Academy for the Hoops Classic, I noticed the other night I tweeted Larry Vaught, who is a columnist in the paper and a longtime Kentucky columnist, and trying to get him interested in the West Kentucky Hoops Classic and maybe come down and cover some of that because he actually does a lot at the Marshall County Hoops Fest.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to get him to at least help us
Pique his interest
publicize
and maybe help,
the West Kentucky thing. And I noticed one of the tweets I sent to him actually got liked on Twitter by Charles Bassey from Aspire Academy. So that was pretty cool that you mentioned somebody and hey, the next thing you know, they're liking your tweet or whatever, or tweeting you back. And so it's just, again, there are no local stories anymore. Once you post something someplace, the entire world is going to see it.
Remember that, kids.
and one of the craziest things ever, I went to a KISS concert one time in Nashville.
Uh-oh.
And one of the opening acts was Cobra and the Lotus.
Oh, yes.
Who I'd never heard of before, but actually they were, walk inside, they were actually pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually tweeted out while I'm at the concert, never heard of this Cobra and the Lotus before, but I'm really enjoying their sound. Well, by the time I get out of the concert and, checking Twitter, their guitarist has retweeted me for Cobra and the Lotus.
Yeah.
So
it's Cobra and the Lotus?
Yes, Cobra and the Lotus.
Because there were groups named Cobra. There was one named Cobra and there was one named Lotus, I think.
Oh, really? Well, this is Cobra and the Lotus. They're a Canadian band.
Maybe they combined. I don't know where the Cobra. You're an old metalhead, so yeah.
But they still tour. They're still out there.
Cobra and the Lotus.
Yes, I actually went out and bought a couple of albums. They're actually pretty good. If you like the earlier stuff was a lot faster. They've kind of become a little more mainstream
now. That's what happens when you get old.
I know people. I guess they're looking for the big radio hit now or whatever.
They're
but
giving their electric up for an acoustic and maybe a ukulele.
Actually have a female singer.
Really?
And it's
cool.
an interesting sound. It's a different sound than what you're looking
metal,
for.
It's metal though, right?
Yes, it's almost, the early stuff's almost more thrash.
Oh, really?
I hate getting into the labels on the music thing.
I had to take you there, man.
You know what? I just like what I like when it comes to music. A couple of weekends ago, I saw Elton John on a Saturday night in Evansville.
Awesome, yeah.
And then went and saw Guns N' Roses 2 nights later in Nashville.
Yeah.
So and enjoyed both of them. Thought they were both awesome.
You're spending your money wisely. I love it. Yeah. So That's great. I mean, it's going to be it's been a fun year so far, and I'd anticipate it being just as fun as we head into these winter sports.
Oh, absolutely.
And as we get into stuff, we'll be talking. Todd, we'll be talking about Caldwell County wrestling. When we'll be talking about what are the winter sports? They've changed them on me, but of course, basketball is going to be our dominant topics of Tiger sports conversation this winter.
Yeah, the winter sports scene isn't quite as crowded as the fall sports scene.
Yeah. So, that'll help us a little bit. But I think Todd and I will also be bringing you, this is Todd's show for the most part, but interesting tidbits as we handle through there. You just don't know what he's going to bring to the table. So we encourage you to listen. We appreciate you listening so far. We're hearing really good comments about it as we're out in the community, and we really appreciate you tuning in here to the Sideline Report.
Well, and one of these days we may start throwing some extra things out there, like favorite concert, best concert attended.
We might take some calls too.
Yeah,
we talked about that.
I would really have to stop and think about my best concerts
me
ever.
Too. I've been to.
I mean, wow.
That'd be pretty tough.
The first time I saw Kiss when they were all back together, that was.
And they were in the makeup, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so,
I mean, because growing up and the guys had all split, and you're thinking, well, I'll never get to see that original lineup of Kiss, and then boom, they get back together and you're at a concert and you're looking at Ace Frehley and Peter Criss and those guys back together, and
that's pretty cool.
I mean, that was pretty cool. It'd be hard to top that when Alice in Chains opened for them in Louisville at Freedom Hall, and I probably didn't give them the proper attention I should have because I was so anxious to see Kiss. I was like, come on, Alice, play faster. Get.
Oh yeah.
And looking back, I wish I would have enjoyed Alice in Chains.
Yeah, Alice in Chains. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I have seen Alice Cooper 4 times.
Yeah.
So, again, that's going to be a tough one. I have to think about that. If I was going to list my favorite concerts ever.
What about Thanksgiving? What about a Thanksgiving memory? Let's go there as we wrap up.
Wow, Thanksgiving, just everybody getting together. I remember when I was little going to my grandparents' house down at Crider, and of course back then we always had, a bunch of Thanksgivings. You'd have Thanksgivings at your grandparents and just getting together, and then have one at home. So,
it's funny how you come back to your grandparents. I did the same way. I'd give anything. I was talking to my cousins in Florida today. Of course, my dad's still in Florida, but my papaw. I told my cousin I'd give anything to see my papaw, and then his grandfather on his mother's side. They used to sit in the corner and they'd swap stories. The other gentleman was from Sweden. My papaw was from up here, but they'd pour beer, and they'd sit there and drink a beer and just talk, and there'd be football, and it was so much fun just to kind of watch and hear them swap stories, because I mean. And he saw that he was on Wall Street when the stock market crashed, and that they talk about all kinds of stuff. I mean, such wisdom, and those are the really precious memories, when you gather around with family.
And you don't realize it at the time when you're hanging out with all those people and all your cousins and family are there, and you're just trying to play and have a good time when you're little. But when you look back now and so many of those people are gone,
it means a lot.
You wish those people could be back with you this Thanksgiving, and everybody was still around the table, but just all those special memories. To me, that's the biggest thing about Thanksgiving.
You're right. We're both very blessed men, and I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving.
You too, and to everybody that listens and everybody that comments, thank you so much for listening. And if you have any suggestions, ideas, we'd be glad to hear those too.
Run it past us, and we hope that not a lot of traffic out there today.
Not today. It's a little. I'm glad we didn't run that best of show from 1980 like we had talked about.
That's exactly right. But it's fun to do this with you, Todd, and appreciate what you do. And folks, go out and pick up the Times Leader, best sports coverage around, and they will have the Caldwell County Tiger preview this coming Saturday on the 26th in the sports edition. And just check out some of the stuff that all the quality writers the Times Leader have, because we're blessed to have a newspaper resource like that in our county. And check out Todd's coverage, and then go back, and if you're from Lyon County or not from Lyon County, want to see that preview as well, Todd has that in this past Wednesday's edition.
Well, and thanks for being willing to come in on Thanksgiving and do this. Like I said, we kind of joked earlier about running a best of show. I'm not sure we have enough shows yet to do a best of. But
no, but we're just two old geeks that just decided, we had Thanksgiving. We'll just
well, we had sports to talk about.
We really did.
As a matter of fact, I didn't even get to all my notes again. I think I say that every week, but
Yeah,
I had more stuff.
We can talk some more. We're 10 minutes over, but that's fine. But also, I do believe we're going to have a Gator DT show tomorrow.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly if it's going to be Gator, if it's going to be DT, if it's going to be. Dennis told me he was definitely going to be here. I don't know if Gator's out of town or be here or not, but there will be a show tomorrow, from what I understand, and so I want you to tune in for that.
You know, before we get going, there is some sad news to report.
Yeah, do that.
The Great Alaska Shootout. This is the final year.
That's hard to believe. How many years has that been going on?
This is the 40th year and the last one.
The Great Alaska Shootout, boy.
I mean, those were some awesome games. I remember staying up past midnight to watch Kentucky play on that thing. Just a few years ago, I have it written down someplace, 2011, Murray State was in that. Actually won it in 2011.
Did they really?
I remember staying up and like 1:30 in the morning. I think one of those games finished. watching that on the satellite. So
that's longer than a West Coast. You know, the Braves used to do those on TBS, those West Coast swings. You know, they'd be a 10:35 start out there, or here, but it'd be like 8:35 out there.
Kentucky actually played in the Great Alaska Shootout 3 times. I actually looked that up this week.
Okay.
Kentucky was 8-1.
Wow.
I think the only loss was to Seton Hall, and that was a really close game. They played Alaska Anchorage, the host school, twice, but apparently it's
What town was that in?
It's in Anchorage.
It is in Anchorage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you said Anchorage.
Yeah.
That's in Barrow.
Ooh, that'd be a cold trip.
That'd be a cold trip, yeah.
But that's part of the issue, you know. Back when that started, the NCAA actually only had a couple of exemptions. You know, you had X number of games you could play, but if you went to Maui or you went to the Great Alaska Shootout, you could play 3 games and only count it as 1.
Wow.
So essentially, that was like getting 2 extra games. So you would see Kentucky, Duke, all those big schools, Kansas, UCLA, show up for the Great Alaska Shootout, and it was a big deal for Alaska, for Alaska Anchorage, a Division II school, to kind of promote themselves. Well, in recent years, teams are going to the Bahamas or, you know,
warmer climates.
Yeah, so all those warmer places, and well, let's face it, if your choice in November is to go to the Bahamas or Alaska, no disrespect to Alaska, but you're probably going to go to the Bahamas, and that's kind of, you know, it's taking a lot of teams.
Is that what's done it in, you think? Just that?
Yeah, I mean,
choices?
it's just, you know, they don't have the schools, the TV coverage isn't there. It's expensive to do that kind of thing.
It is. Everything's expensive up there, and then I guess to take all your resources and try to get it all done, yeah.
But I remember Patino taking Kentucky up there, and do you remember this? Wayne Turner went out on a snowmobile and actually got lost for 3 hours. I mean, it was like
I don't remember that.
I mean, he literally was. I mean, it's funny to look back now and say, hey, he went out and got lost, but I think they were actually worried for a while if they were ever going to
see Wayne
find
again.
him. And
oh, that's hilarious.
Wayne Turner, one of those guys that, you know, not sure he ever got the credit he deserved. I think he played in 3 championship games and won a couple of those.
I mean, I remember the player, I remember the name, and I think you're right about that. I mean, he was on some of those championship teams.
So when I think of the Great Alaska Shootout, I always think of Wayne Turner.
Where's Wayne Turner?
Getting lost in a snowmobile and was, you know, by all accounts, was lost for about 3 hours.
Right.
Now maybe he was hanging out someplace and, you know, just having a hot chocolate or whatever, but the team didn't know where he was, so he was essentially lost.
We're gone over, so I mean we're fine.
We'll
talk some more. We'll just talk some more. So if you got anything else, we'll just might as well talk.
Well, I just wanted to get the Great Alaska Shootout in. I'm not sure it means a lot to a lot of people, but you talk about memories, and I just remember those late games every year when UK would go out there. They played there in 1979, 88, and 96. Of course, 96 was the year. That had been the 96-97 season, so I think that was the runner-up season.
Yeah, because
the national runner-up season.
Yeah. And then Tubby came back and won it in that next season.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Doesn't seem like it should be that long ago, but you know, you start looking 20 years ago now, so it's been a while.
It has been a while. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about food. I just got to bring this up. I don't want to go. Favorite Thanksgiving dish?
Well, it's turkey. I mean, you
yours?
have to. I mean, turkey and dressing, that's the ultimate.
See, mine's oyster dressing.
Really?
Some people make oyster dressing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. It's, you know, and I don't think I've ever met an oyster I didn't like, but there's different oyster dressing recipes. But my Aunt Nancy made a really good one. my grandmother made a good one, and I know there's some different recipes. I pulled one off the internet the other day. It was Jimmy Buffett's, Lucy Buffett's recipe.
Oh, wow.
So I haven't made it, but it looks pretty good.
But Thanksgiving is not just about the meal. It's about the leftovers later and the next day.
Shoot, yeah. When you kick back watching the sports, and
Yes.
and you're getting that turkey sandwich, and yeah, it's gonna be good.
And we haven't even mentioned the NFL games today.
No, let's go through that schedule real quick while we're here. Of course, here pretty soon, it's at 11:30. It's the Vikings and the Lions. I don't have the networks where they are. I'm sure one of them's Fox, one of them's CBS, and then there's an NFL network.
I can't remember which is which, but yeah.
Usually, I think NFL has AFC, but they're AFC.
I think the late game is on NBC, actually.
It is, okay. I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. And then Cowboys and Chargers at 3:30, and then you got the Giants and the Redskins at 7:30. So,
yeah.
woo-hoo.
I'm sure all those matchups looked great going into the season.
Yeah.
Now, not so much.
I just like watching Jay Gruden's expressions sometime, and then the Giant coach, what's that guy's name? They asked. Did you see the press conference the other day? They asked him a question after they just got demolished.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
He just somebody asked him a really concise question about what he just went. He stared at him.
Wow, that's awesome.
He was stunned. Yeah, and I forget that guy's name, but I mean he was the assistant under Coughlin.
I can't remember.
That took the reins.
I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with the NFL as much this season.
I haven't either.
I'm still.
I'm with you.
I'm mourning my Rams,
Yeah.
leaving St. Louis and going back to Los Angeles. But
I'm
that's
mourning
just me.
the Chargers leaving San Diego and going to Los Angeles. No.
Yeah, that.
I don't get it. And then we're gonna have the
Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah.
Come on. Man.
Or will they just be the Vegas Raiders?
Vegas Raiders. I don't know, but I'm gonna take.
Because the NHL team is just the Vegas Knights.
I'm sure it's probably
I think, or the Vegas Golden Knights. I can't remember.
I can't do it, man. I mean, I just can't do it. I don't hold with it, as they say.
Well, obviously, I missed the USFL, as you could tell by my T-shirt this morning.
I saw the Washington Federal. I love the USFL. I was a Tampa Bay Bandit man, Steve Spurrier. I love the Tampa Bay Bandits.
I was a big fan of the Boston, New Orleans, Portland Breakers.
There you go. The Boston, Portland, New Orleans.
Started in Boston. They were the Boston Breakers.
Okay.
The second year they played in New Orleans. They were the New Orleans Breakers. And the third year they moved to Portland, and they were the Portland Breakers.
Awesome.
I love those leagues. I mean,
yeah, they were great, and of course, Herschel Walker kind of put it on the map, didn't he? The USFL. I mean, didn't Herschel Walker kind of?
Yes, because Donald Trump paid him like crazy money back then. It was over $1 million a year, which in the mid '80s was a lot of money. Still a lot of money to me, but as far as sports salaries go, not quite as much anymore. But yeah, paid him a ton of money. He left Georgia early.
Yep.
Probably, arguably the greatest player in the history of the Southeastern Conference. One of them anyway.
One of them, yeah.
And yeah, he went to the New Jersey Generals.
New Jersey Generals, that's right. Yeah. And there's probably people out there listening. Hey,
what?
If you're like, yeah, who is
who?
That? Yeah.
They're making up names.
What that league last? Maybe
it went into its third year, I think.
That's what I'm saying. I was not quite 4 years.
I think the first 2 years they played a spring schedule, and then they tried to compete with the NFL in the third season, and that was wrong.
Yeah, that was wrong. It might be an opportunity again.
I think the XFL could have had some success if it had toned down some of the crazy stuff.
I agree. That was pretty fun.
It was.
I like arena football when I see it.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty fun.
But I think a spring league could work. I don't know if you could ever compete directly with the NFL. To me, I think the USFL probably some of those guys that actually had some money and could afford it were probably trying to work their way into an NFL franchise that was their chance to say, hey, look, we can have a professional football team. We can make a go of it.
Yeah.
If the USFL folds, bring us on board in the NFL, sort of like back in the old NFL-AFL merger. But I'm not sure any of those guys actually ever got close to that. And, then they sued the NFL, actually won, but they were awarded $3, I think. So that didn't go very far to cover expenses.
No, it was done. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy your food, your friends, your family. And we appreciate you being with us just for a little while today here on WPKY. If we don't get out of here, we'll be here to news time.
Oh, yeah.
And
we can pick this back up next week.
Yeah, we will. And tune in for the Sideline Report next week at 9:03. Todd and I will be back. That is the 30th. And we will bring you another interesting show. We sure do thank you for the support. And hope you, again, have a blessed day.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
All right. We'll see you next week here on the Sideline Report. And we'll talk to you later. For Todd Griffin, Ty Englebright, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Brighten up the holidays with LED lights. Penny Ryle Electric reminds you that LEDs offer more than Christmas tree lights. LEDs are for home, business, and security. LEDs cost more, but they last much longer, as much as 25 times longer than a conventional 60-watt bulb. And an LED bulb costs approximately 80% less a year to